Hello, I want to share with you what my wife and I did for our 5-year anniversary this fall. We flew to Japan all the way from Utah to Haneda Airport, which is right over here. There it is. And then we took the subway all the way up here to Toshima City, specifically Ikebukuro. And we stopped here at the subway and managed to find an Airbnb. Let me show you what some of this looks like. The first scene, the first moment that we stepped out on foot in Japan. This is the train station, and there's a bunch of shopping, department stores all around it. But we came out right here, and this was the first thing that we saw. This is the subway. We came out with our luggage. There's not a lot of escalators, so carrying luggage all by hand is a little bit tricky, but we rolled our luggage all the way through the street and went this direction. And you can see the amount of English on buildings is pretty frequent. There's quite a bit in there, so you've got the opportunity to still read and understand what kind of store you might be going into. But we carried our luggage after flying for 16, 17 hours of travel total between our layover and all of that. And of course, not much sleep, but you're running on pure excitement, being able to see everything that you've seen in videos and images, and to be there in person, it's really thrilling. We had arrived right around 4 or 5 o'clock, so it wasn't super bright out like this. It gets in October dark pretty early, so it was getting to be nighttime. But being able to look around and take a look at all the different buildings, the amount of stores that are all stacked next to each other, it's really incredible. And this was the final stretch of getting back to our Airbnb. This is the road. This is a little bakery that we stopped at a couple times. Fantastic food all around. And this was the side street where our Airbnb was at. So we came back here into this nook and set up home base right back here to the right. That little house right there, tiny little apartment, ground floor. And we started most of our adventures for the first half of our trip right from this street. When you first get to Japan in the airport, you will want to get a rail pass. And inside of the rail pass section, they had this nice chart indicating all the words that you need to be familiar with. Excuse me and sorry were one of the biggest ones that we use, sumimasen and gomen nasai. Both of them are fantastic for starting the conversation, not necessarily a relationship. Hard during a week's time. This is the inside of a subway rail car, really clean, very well organized. And this was the town that we stayed at nighttime. This is one of my shots here of the street level area. You can see Cody's beef saurus, beef, anything around meat. It's fine dining for Japanese. It's significantly more expensive than eating sushi or fish, which I'm okay with because sushi and fish are definitely one of my favorites, and I would actually prefer it over steak. The amount of crane games across the city is incredible. There's a huge variety. So one of the first things that we did, we went and did a little bit of shopping in a department store. And this was the only stuffed animal that I won for Chelsea. And this thing's probably 3 inches tall, so tiny. And what we noticed, or at least what I noticed about all the trees, is how much care goes into each individual tree. You can see there's a ton of pruning that goes in, making sure that the trees stay healthy, even the trees that are on the street level. And was really remarkable to see the attention of detail put into each one of the trees across the city. This was inside of, well, right next to one of the bigger shopping centers. Lots of skyways connecting the buildings. Again, a little more architecture. We're still in Ikebukuro here. Very clean, very well maintained city areas. And of course, we had to go to the Pokemon Center, which was phenomenal. They've got display going here, all the different games. Sharing some excitement with Chelsea. The nicest things about Japan is the amount of food. So we went to one of the department stores and they dedicated an entire floor to selling local craft goods. And so we got a bunch of baked goods. It was super tasty. The melon pan is one of the really unique breads that they have in Japan. Definitely worth Googling. Here's another shot of downtown Ikebukuro. And now we're in Akihabara, which is one of the big nerdy video game centers in Tokyo. One of the districts dedicated almost entirely to anime and video games and crane games and all sorts of different ways that you can entertain yourself. This was a piano arcade game. I had fun playing. And everybody is, of course, max level skill at these rhythm games. This was the most popular floor were the rhythm games. The colors, the animations, very notable. This was a map of all of the people who were visiting this Akihabara area in this specific game center. And there's quite a bit from Australia, quite a bit from East Asia, quite a bit from Europe, a ton from Europe, way more from Europe than US. And these capsule pods are everywhere in Tokyo, especially any of the big cities. And there's characters that I've never even heard of, all sorts of little devices and USB cords. So it's not all just action figures. There's a lot of functional things that you can get from these capsule pods. And of course, it's a game of chance. There's a chance you'll get the one that you want, the color you want. This is a map with the floor, and this was one of the crane games Chelsea played. We spent more on crane games than we should have. But we didn't win hardly anything. They're really tough. Looks like you got it, right? Totally got it. That's the one. Nope. One more try. This has got to be the one. We got it closer. It bounced closer to the exit point. Come on. No. A lot of fun, though, and really fantastic to see how much activity comes from places like these in Japan. This was a store selling all sorts of Studio Ghibli merchandise. Kiki's Delivery Service, Totoro, high quality action figures, all behind glass. A lot of them sold out. This is Spirited Away. More Totoro. Didn't end up buying any of this stuff. I'm not a person who likes a lot of knickknacks, but I can really appreciate it. Little stuffed animals. Keychains. Calcifer frying pan from Howl's Moving Castle. A lot of these wooden layered sculptures. You build them yourself, put them together. You can paint them. Some of them are pre-painted. Lots of Pokemon merchandise. More crane games. And I did get asked to put my cell phone away because they do not want you to document how the crane game works, share any of that online, which makes sense. I can appreciate that. It's one of the areas that we stopped at in between Akihabara and where we were staying. Just a nice still shot of town bustling. I love this sculpture. I thought this was, it's more of like a way to entice people to come in and get ramen, but there's a tiny pole inside of there that bounces up and down. This is the Owl Cafe. You could go up to these owls, pet them, touch them while you hang out and drink coffee or tea. They're all just hanging out. A little close-up of one here. Another shot of the town. There's a few European, American, foreigners here and there. Some of the buildings, absolutely fantastic. This is a shot from a area above one of the train stations. Some of the nightlife. And now, off from Tokyo, we are heading to Osaka. This is some footage from one of the trains. This wasn't the bullet train, this was just a standard train taking us on our way. A lot of side stations, houses right up against the rail stations, the railways. There's a mix every now and then of buildings that are obviously from long ago and buildings that are much, much newer. And here we are in Osaka. This is one of the first street level areas that we saw after we came out of the station. And this is Dotonbori, which is a lot of food, a lot of shopping, a lot of entertainment along this stretch. We stayed about 2 minutes away from this area. We did a lot of browsing, a lot of hanging out. This area is known specifically for its crab and its seafood. So we ate a ton of nice seafood. We actually ate it at Taco Bell here in this area as well too, and it was really good. It's a little more expensive than the US, and it's obviously a little slightly different menu items. One of the downtown areas, walking around, checking out some of the side streets, which are packed with small bars and restaurants. Most of these restaurants only have enough room for about 12, maybe 16 people. So the amount of selection people have to choose from, if one restaurant's full, you've got the ability to just walk another 10 feet and find another one. The vending machines were so nice, relatively inexpensive, lots of great coffee, tea, electrolyte water. Pocari Sweat turned out to be one of my favorites because of the amount of walking we were doing. We were doing about 10 miles a day, so you need to hydrate. This is our trip to Kyoto from Osaka. And start to see, as you get farther away from the city, there's a little bit more in terms of choices and nature, all that kind of stuff is a little more prevalent. This is the areas that we went to around Tokyo. The shrine, or I'm sorry, not Tokyo, this is Kyoto still. Little shrine tucked away from one of the main shopping areas. So you're supposed to spoon some of that water into your mouth, and then you you spit it out, and then you use some coins to donate to the shrine and make a wish. This is a gated off residential area. I was admiring the landscaping, the amount of moss, and not a lot of grass, but lots of little ground cover, highly maintained trees and shrubs. This is fall, so most of these plants are going to sleep for the winter. This was walking along in Kyoto. Another shrine along the road. Lots of individuals dressed in kimonos, taking in the sights. This was some sort of a festival that we walked into there. One of the large castles, some of the old buildings in Kyoto. Most of these, along some of these old roads in Kyoto, most of these buildings have been renovated to be souvenir shops, small businesses, lots of great food, plenty of things that you can stock up on in terms of pottery and ceramics. And there was a lot of people taking photos. They had professional photographers following them, taking photos for social media. There's a shot looking back on that castle. Beautiful architecture. One of the bigger bummers for me was the amount of bonsais that were available, but you can't bring it home with you without doing some special processing and customs, so it really wasn't worth trying to figure out how to make that happen. Here's some more walking around in Kyoto. Not all of Kyoto looks like this. There's really just one section dedicated to preserving some of the older buildings like this. But we did manage to go here and check it out, and it was fantastic. Definitely worth it. Very packed, though. I mean, there's a lot of people here. This was like a Thursday afternoon, or it might have actually been a Saturday. That might have been the reason why it was as busy as it was. But plenty of locals. Again, you don't really see that many foreigners, so the whole vacation feels a little bit private. It feels like this is, you don't have the opportunity to easily communicate unless you speak Japanese fluently. So you're kind of forced into feeling like it's a private experience, but it's great. Here we are in Nara, so this was a different day. We took the train from Osaka to Nara. Nara is a special place because the deer here in this area have been trained over who knows how many years that if they want a cookie, they have to bow. But we were too close to the train station here where most of them had already had all the food that they needed for the day, and they were not interested in getting more cookies for the most part. There's a few here and there, but open space. These deer are pretty much welcome to roam wherever they want to go. They stay in the park, which is great, but it doesn't feel gated off. It doesn't feel like this is something that's been set up. It has an organic feeling to it. Here's a couple that were interested in some cookies. A little bit of bowing here, not big time. Let's see if... There we go. Along the roads around Nara, around the trails that lead up closer into the mountains, there are plenty of these sculptures along the roads. And my guess is it has something to do with the Shinto religion of a place that a spirit could stay. And then, of course, more deer. But that's my guess on the Shinto thing. I haven't researched that enough, and I should. But totally speculation. It's beautiful either way. I used to hear get just a little bit too intense in terms of asking for their cookie. What was interesting about these shrines, though, is that they have paper over the top of those holes. A lot of them do. Some of them have holes through the paper, which I'm thinking are from birds, but we did get the chance to go to a botanical garden, an actual Japanese garden in Nara, which was absolutely beautiful. And the amount of plants that I've never seen before in person was one of my favorite parts about our Japan trip. So I've got plenty of footage from this. A lot of things that I'd like to incorporate into my garden at home. Maybe not the big sculptures, but a lot of the design, a lot of the stone laying. We don't have the benefit of having a more humid and damp climate where I live, but some of this could be set up. Some nice roses. Probably not a rose, probably something else. Little fungus growing on the moss. There was probably only 3 or 4 other people in the garden with us, so we had the place really to ourselves. It was really nice. Some koi. Expecting food, but we did not have any food with us. Any of the koi pellets. Didn't see anywhere that you could buy some. These are wisteria. It's an entire forest of wisteria, which blooms in the spring. So no blooms here right now, but if you were to come in the spring around the same time as the cherry blossoms, this would be absolutely beautiful. And the poles they use to hold them up, pretty simple. They've got them all over the place. Really shallow riverbed landscaping feature. Lots of grasses. And probably a lot more vibrant during the spring when things are just waking up. But most of these plants have been working hard over the last year, and it's starting to be ready for fall. Nice little ring of mushrooms of some sort in the garden. I think this is actually called turkey tail. I'm sure there's a Japanese term for it as well. Growing on one of the logs. That extra humidity, the amount of shade, it's perfect for a lot of fungus to get established. And important for them to be around because it provides a lot of ways to break down material. These flowers were blooming, and I have no idea what they are, but very, very vibrant blue. Look like a nice road leading farther down the path. As you can see, as we've gotten farther away from the city, there are significantly less people, so you really do have the opportunity to take a little more quiet time. These are all seeds, all fruit from the actual botanical garden. This is a rice field, the way a rice field looks after the rice has been harvested. So there's no water in it anymore. The irrigation's been cleared out, but they're ready for next spring now. Japanese scarecrow. I really admired the joinery used to create these lamps. Thanks so much for watching. Glad you had the opportunity to see what we were able to see in Japan. Looking forward to doing some more videos like this here and there on things that are inspiring.